Hey everybody, I'm going to do a little bit of news this week. Last week, if I remember right, I kind of put that video up on Friday showing you about newsy news coming here. That was fun. I got an email and a picture sent to me today from somebody I know here in the Villages. And it says here, hey there Skip. It says, after 30 years of law enforcement, I have never seen anyone park like this until I came to the Villages. And I got a picture here, and I'll try to upload it, probably up over here somewhere. And yeah, somebody's got a high-dollar car. These people always think they're privileged. That they can park in a handicap zone. They can park on a sidewalk. They always think that my car's worth a lot of money, so that's why I do what I do. The only reason why people do this kind of things is because they have no common sense. They have no common courtesy. And to be right down to it, they're privileged. These are the ones that people call privileged drivers or privileged people to think because they have a little bit of money that they deserve something better than everybody else. And basically, they don't. He's breaking the law. And this is another problem here when it comes to like this kind of parking and things like that. The police don't really enforce anything. The Wildwood police is really weird because in Brownwood, it's the worst down there by where the Dunkin' Donuts is and the movie theater right there. You notice how the sidewalk, if those of you that's been here, all the sidewalk curbing kind of comes down flush with the street. Well, all that is for people that are handicapped. Wheelchairs can get down on the road and go across to the square. People walking around, they don't have to worry about a curb to step up on because as you get older, you get really more clumsy. You can't pick your feet up as high, or a lot of them do. And so anyway, that's what it's about. But when it comes to golf cart people here, the people that are privileged or people in cars, oh, we're in a hurry, we'll only be a minute. They park up on the sidewalk. I mean, they literally will pull their car right up on that and park right there. And then the excuse is, well, I'm not in anybody's way. They can walk around me. I'm only going to be a minute. I really don't care. The point is they're parking on a sidewalk, which in any town I've ever been in, first of all, it's stupid. And then second of all, it's just against the law. And what's really weird is right there next to Dunkin' Donuts, just a few steps away, is the Wildwood police station. And they're never there. They're never there. Taxpayers spent a lot of money to put that police station there. And I think I've seen somebody around there once or twice. That's it. Nobody's there, and nobody enforces that parking down there. I've never seen a Wildwood police officer go up to anybody down there and say, sir, you can't park here. You have to park at a parking spot. This is not a designated parking spot. And they just don't. So as long as they don't enforce it, this problem's going to get worse as the villages gets larger. Real quick mention about our favorite villager, Ed McGinty, village of Hadley is where he's from. I hope that the people in the village of Hadley love this guy. He's a nut. And he's making the villages look bad. Anyway, he's the guy that was arrested for stalking. He always starts arguments about politics. Why anybody around here would even discuss politics is beyond me. I mean, just get a life. Why would you go to a swimming pool and sit around and talk about politics knowing it's going to be an argument? Get a life. Forget it. It's done and over. Good Lord, you people just drive me nuts. Well, anyway, Ed McGinty, after he got arrested and charged for stalking that lady and all this and that, I got a picture I'll put up. One of the latest pictures I'll put up here. You'll love it. It says he has set up a GoFundMe account to pay for his legal defense for peacefully protesting outside of a leading Trump supporter's house. His goal is to raise $10,000. As of Wednesday evening, he has raised $4,900. So it just goes to show you, there's other nuts out there that support this nut. Many of his donors have chosen to remain anonymous. Yeah, they're ashamed. He set up a GoFundMe page on September 27th. 3 days after his arrest, he remains free on a $5,000 bond. You can protest anything you want. I'm all for it. That's called freedom. But you can't follow somebody and keep harassing them. That's against the law. And that's what he got arrested for. He followed this lady to her house and was harassing her at her home. And you're supporting this in a GoFundMe? Shame on you. A villager's son landed back behind bars after a judge revoked his bond. Richard Street, 41, who previously lived with his mother in the village of Polo Ridge but now lists a Bellevue address, was booked without bond Tuesday at the Sumter County Detention Center. Well, it looks like Mom finally had enough of his crap and made him get out and go get his own house. If that's what happened, good for you, Mom. You can only play games with these adult children for so long. Street had been free on bond following his arrest in April on charges of driving while license suspended and possession of drug paraphernalia. However, prosecutor's office filed a motion in late July following another arrest seeking to revoke the Washington, D.C. native's bond. Street was arrested last year after stealing, oh, I know this guy. He stole his mother's car. Let me see here. Street was arrested last year after stealing his mother's Ford Escape from her home a day after his father's funeral. What a sweetheart. That'd be the day that me and this kid, even if he was my kid, would part company. Would you, just ask yourself, would you put up with this with anybody else if it wasn't your child? And that's the correct answer. She left the keys in the car on the kitchen counter, Street's father died January 23rd, 2020, and a celebration of life was held in the villages. Street was arrested in 2019 at the wheel of the same Ford Escape. Villagers are blaming a short-term rental situation for fueling an armed standoff that forced them from their homes. The Sumter County Sheriff's Office SWAT team was called September 29th to a home on Meriwether Way at Creekside Landing. The man who barricaded himself in the home was believed to be armed, and some areas of the community were evacuated or under lockdown for 6 to 7 hours. We did not know what was going on. We did not know what we were in for. I saw this guy with a big gun. The SWAT guys just kept coming and coming, said Linda Sellers, who lives on Meriwether Way. She and her neighbors described the terror they felt that day when they appeared Friday before the Community Development District 8 Board of Supervisors. She and her neighbors said that the home in Creekside Landing has been a short-term rental and there has been turnover every couple of days or weeks. This coming and going and not knowing who is there is crazy, said Sellers, who has lived for 10 years in Creekside Landing, which for many years was used to house the village's guests. Visiting on a lifestyle preview plan, the Villages of Lake Sumter Incorporated still owns 4 homes on Meriwether Way. Janet, I can't even pronounce this name, Coccioletti, I don't know, who also lives at Meriwether Way, complained that the short-term rental situation has created a revolving door. She says some of the tenants included workers building homes in the southern end of the villages. Coccioletti said they had large diesel spewing trucks. I know, that can be really irritating. It's these property management companies, that's the problem. They really do not monitor people going in, going out. They don't care. It's all about keeping it rented. That's it, and the money flow. So I would just simply stay away from property management companies, even though I know there's some good ones out there, but most people don't take the time to look for them. And I'm not sure. Here's one of the problems that I talked about with homes with a reverse mortgage. That's why I had those 2 reverse mortgage specialists on my show to answer any and all questions that anybody may have about a reverse mortgage. Well, here's one of the things that I brought up several times about the villages kind of being in between a rock and a hard place on some of this stuff around here. A public hearing was held Friday on the condition of a vacant home with a reverse mortgage in the villages. The home at 1762 Roseberry Loop in the village of Winifred was discussed by the Community Development District 5 Board of Supervisors. Henry Mabry purchased the home in 2011 for $200,000. The 80-year-old is living out of state with his daughter. A complaint was received July 28th about overgrown grass, weeds, as well as dead grass. The violation was verified the following day by community standards. The overgrown grass and weeds have been addressed, but the dead grass is still a problem. While the problem of abandoned homes has been well documented in the villages, CDD5 supervisor were relieved that this vacant home does not fall into that same category. The utilities are current and the daughter is paying the bill. She has been trying to remedy problems at her father's home. The good thing is that the family is interested in and involved. It isn't going to spiral out of control. However, neighbor John easily complained that the home has been in decline since Mabry moved out. He used to do a pretty good job keeping it up, Easley said. He said there is mold growing on the driveway and the roof is deteriorating. However, officials noted there had been no complaints about those issues. And the reason why they note that is we all in the villages, all of us in the villages, including you if you buy a home, this is a complaint-based, I'll call it a city now, complaint-based city. If they don't receive a complaint about something, nothing gets done. You know, people say, well, but home watch drives by all the time. It's not their job. They don't do that. If you have a neighbor or if you have a home in your area that you live in that violates deed restrictions there, it's your job as a resident to file a complaint. Once you file that complaint, you can do it one or two ways. You can email it or you can phone it in. Just keep in mind, like I've said before, emails in Florida by state law is public record. So as anybody that watches my video on a regular basis, I've been arguing with John Rohan and the Recreation Department for the longest time about our swimming pools and things being used as public restrooms by every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And they say, well, there's nothing they can really do about that. You know, you can't keep them out. And then the excuse was, well, that's the your residents landscapers doing that. That's not the people working for the villages doing landscaping work. And so you residents have to patrol that. To where the last time that he called me up, and I think I told you about, he was yelling at me. He was saying that there was really nothing they could do under the law. They couldn't do that. And then at the same time, keep in mind, I've read these stories that they can trespass residents from going into the swimming pool areas for whatever reason. Just McGinty, he's been trespassed, I think, at the Hadley neighborhood pool, which is the adult pool, which is the adult pool that I'm complaining about here in Hillsboro, that one. He's been trespassed to go there. Don't you find that unusual? He can trespass a resident from going to the pool that he's paying to use, but he can't trespass people that don't even live here going in there. It's just, I find that hot. They always point the finger somewhere else. They just want you to go away is all they want you to do. Here's the story that'll back up what I've been saying all this time. An official with the village's district government said Friday that homeowners are to blame for properties of the villages displaying banners at their residence. The big sign that the village puts in front when they're having an open house or they got something like that going on, your real estate people will come in and put this big sign in your yard saying open house today because you're trying to sell your home. That's their job. And I appreciate them doing that because they do a great job in selling homes. But the problem is the residents have deed restrictions. We're not allowed to have signs on our property. You can't put a for sale sign in your front yard. You can't put a garage rummage sale in your front yard or go down the street and put a big sign in somebody's yard with balloons attached to it saying birthday party, turn here. I mean, they do it. Nobody complains. That's the thing. If they complain, then that stuff comes down. We're not allowed to do that. But yet the villages have been doing this all along, putting these signs up in yards. Open house today. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword, isn't it? Elected supervisors have been questioning why Properties of Villages is allowed to display its prominent feather banners to advertise open houses. Some supervisors have suggested that Properties of Villages is receiving special treatment with community standards, turning a blind eye to the large pennants. It was a topic brought up at Friday's meeting at the Development District Board 5 of Supervisors. Deputy District Manager Kenny Blocker said that homeowners are ultimately to blame for placement of the feather flags in their yard. They don't want to address it to the developer's office. It's the homeowner's problem. His opinion was backed up by legal counsel Mark Brentz. Who does Mark work for? The homeowners are the ones bound by the deed restrictions, and they know it is not permitted. However, supervisors do not accept that explanation. Well, good for you, because they're just trying to pass the buck once again. That's a cop-out, and you know it, said Supervisor Reed, what's his name, Panis? Good for you, Reed. He alleged the properties of the villages receive special treatment. We should have standards that are the same, Panis said. He added that the homeowners are not the ones putting up the signs. CDD5 Chairman Gary Cato asked about the dialogue with properties of the villages. The question is, have they been informed not to use those signs? Blocker said there have been conversations with property of the villages as recently as 3 weeks ago. We will go back and look at them. That means they haven't done anything. They went into a meeting and said, hey, they're complaining about you putting signs in the yard saying it's a deed restriction that you have for them, and you're doing it against deed restrictions. And I can tell you, the developer's going, I don't have to abide by deed restrictions because I don't own the property. That's what's going on. There you go. Pamela Diane Hess, 50, was transported by ambulance to UF Health Leesburg Hospital after crashing a red Buick LaCrosse Wednesday morning on Hillsborough Trail, according to a report from the Florida Highway Patrol. When an investigator arrived onto the scene, he noted heavy damage to the front end of the Buick, which had been involved in a single vehicle accident. The vehicle was being hooked up to a tow truck when the Florida Highway Patrol trooper arrived on the scene. The driver, who had already been transported to the hospital, was identified as Hess, who lives with her mother at 1221 Allaire Loop in the village of Fernandina. The investigator went to the hospital, and when he arrived there, he was advised by dispatch that there had been another crash location. The front bumper was still on the lawn, and the vehicle had knocked over a light pole at the home. She apparently fled the scene of that crash. The Missouri native's actions led to investigators to believe that Hess was under the influence. During an interview at the hospital, Hess admitted she had taken several medications prior to the crash. She provided a breath sample that indicated she had not consumed alcohol. She also provided a urine sample. A check revealed she had been driving on a suspended license. Hess was arrested on charges of hit and run, driving under the influence, and driving while license suspended. How about leaving the scene of an accident? She was booked at the Sumter County Detention Center on $5,500 bond. Hess had been arrested when she was driving the same red Buick in 2020 and got confused by the red button at the entrance gate in the villages. A 19-year-old living in the villages has been booked without bond at the Sumter County Detention Center after he was arrested as a fugitive from justice in Alabama. Aiden Willis Yeager was booked at about 4:30 p.m. Friday at the jail. He had been arrested this past November in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, on a number of sexual extortion charges, all involving 5 minors under the age of 17. The arrest was made after investigators with the West Alabama Human Trafficking Task Force served a search warrant at a home there. The initial charges came from a very short extraction of an electronic device that belonged to the suspect. At the current time, all the victims identified are out-of-state residents. The task force said in a news release issued at the time of Yeager's arrest. Officers with the University of Alabama Police Department's Criminal Investigation Division and the UA Joint Electronics Crime Task Force assisted in the case. His bond in Alabama had initially been set at $375,000. Woo! You're going to have to do what our boy down here does. You're going to have to start a FundMe page, and that way all the other felons in the United States can chip in and help get you out of jail. Yeah? Villager Alan LaBurns got a hole-in-one Saturday at the Palmer Legends Championship course, Cherry Hill hole number 8 with a 6 hybrid. It was a Village of Virginia Trace resident's 3rd hole-in-one and his 1st in the Villages. Well, congratulations, Mr. LaBurns, on your hole-in-one. Here's a letters to the editor you might find interesting. I find it interesting that thefts from public locations warrant extensive media coverage, whereas similar thefts in the residential areas are less so covered. I write this after being twice victimized within the span of a week of moving into Hacienda's Mission Hills. That's in the villages. It's called the Villages of Hacienda Mission Hills. It's just not too far from Lake Sumter Landing. It's a beautiful area, by the way. But they got a problem there, and it started 2 years ago. And apparently this guy don't watch my news, or he'd know. Reported to the sheriff's office and willingly approved of the release of the data, time, location, items stolen, and cost. It is a situation where the losses were on developer-owned property and thus considered more noteworthy. Just feel that by covering all the incidences equally, we villagers, we will be treated as the primary focus and relegate the developer's concern to a secondary status. After all, it is we villagers who provide all the fiscal resources. And that was sent in by B. Howard Penix from the Hacienda of Mission Hills Development. Thank you, Lee. Here's a little update on the guy that was arrested up there at Creekside Landing. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to kind of skip through it. Aiden Willis Yeager, 19, was taken into custody as a fugitive from justice shortly before 4 p.m. Friday. The initial charges came from a very short extraction of an electronic device. Yeager is a native of Louisville, Kentucky. He attended Trinity High School, a Catholic all-boys college preparatory high school located in St. Matthews, Kentucky, a city within Louisville Metro. The villa where Yeager was taken into custody this past Friday was purchased in June for $400,000 by Dennis Kayett and Julie Yeager Kayett, who are real estate agents in Louisville, Kentucky. Remember I told you that real estate people and property management people and investment companies that buy these things, they don't care about you. They just don't. It's all about keeping that money flow going to help pay for that property they just bought. That's all it is. It's an investment thing. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you that in most villa areas, that's the investment property that a lot of companies buy. Patio villas, courtyard villas, those kinds of things. So when you buy in a villa area, just know this. And a flash mob led by Carol Winslow of the Villages surprised the crowd at Edna's on the Green on Sunday with a rendition of Michael Jackson's Thriller dance. The zombies were dressed in 1950s and 60s garb as a nod to the band Johnny Wild and the Delights, who were performing that evening. The dancers will perform again at 6 p.m. on Halloween at Spanish Springs Town Square. Here's a letters to the editor. I find it amusing because this has actually happened to me at least once. To the editor, my golf group has played Cane Gardens twice in the last month, and after our round, we went to get a pitcher of beer. We were told not once, but on 2 different occasions that they were out of draft beer. How does that happen? That all their draft beers are out? What kind of management is this, and how does this keep happening? I feel they just wanted us to buy bottled beer because they were overstocked and needed to get rid of it. Are they that poorly managed that they don't realize their beer supply is running low? My wife worked for a bud distributor in Michigan, and if you called and said you were out, that they would send a sales rep out with another barrel to hold you over until they could get a truck to you. My whole golf group refused to buy bottled beer and just left. Maybe they'll wake up and get a better manager. And that was sent in by Marvin Witt, Village of Lynn Haven. I hear you, Marvin. That happened. The adult daughter of a couple in the village of Osceola Hills was arrested after a neighbor witnessed an argument that turned violent. The neighbor was standing outside his garage when he noticed a 41-year-old Stephanie Marie Romas was arguing with a man at a home across the street, according to an arrest report from the Sumter County Sheriff's Office. The argument included Romas pushing the man, who suffered multiple scratches on his left arm, out of a doorway. She also slammed a door during the argument, the report said. After deputies arrived on the scene and conducted interviews, the native of New York was taken into custody on a charge of battery. She was booked at the Sumter County Detention Center and released after a $2,000 bond. Roman had been arrested October 9 on a warrant charging her with theft. She is due to arraignment on that case November the 10th at the Sumter County Courthouse. Look at this sweetheart. An intoxicated man in a golf cart was arrested after a traffic jam in the Villages. Police officers responded at about 7 p.m. Wednesday to a 1300 block of Paradise Drive on the historic side of the Villages, where they found a red club car and two other golf carts parked along the roadway, according to the arrest report from the Lady Lake Police Department. The citizens were directing traffic around the golf cart in the road. While awaiting officer arrival, the arresting officer wrote in the report, upon arrival, one of the citizens pointed to the red club car. The driver was identified as 61-year-old David Kerrigan of Summerfield. A woman in the golf car with Kerrigan gave the keys to the police. Kerrigan became belligerent and argumentative, and at one point reached into his pocket and pulled out a knife. He threw the knife to the ground. He refused to put his hands behind his back. He was forcibly handcuffed. An empty bottle of Caliber spiced rum was found in a golf cart. Kerrigan, who was arrested in a golf cart drunk driving incident in 2018, was arrested on charges of disorderly intoxication and resisting arrest. He was booked at the Lake County Jail and released on a $1,000 bond. A human smuggler was nabbed in Sumter County with 4 illegal immigrants. A Florida Highway Patrol trooper pulled over a 2014 Toyota sedan at about noon Thursday at mile marker 313 near Bushnell because the vehicle had an illegal window tint. The car had a Louisiana temporary tag which had been altered. The driver was identified as 24-year-old Mario Antonio Padilla Aguirla of New Orleans, who had a Honduras identification card but no driver's license. The trooper spotted 4 nervous passengers in the car with scarring on their arms. The trooper, previously deployed to Texas, recognized obvious signs of human trafficking and, following minor questioning, determined that the 2 males from Guatemala and the 2 females from Mexico had been picked up in Texas and Louisiana. It was determined that the 4 passengers had paid for transit to Florida, with additional payment required once they arrived at their destination. Following the roadside investigation, the 4 passengers were transferred to the U.S. Border Patrol. Padilla Aguirla was arrested on charges of no valid driver's license, no vehicle registration, altered temporary tag, 4 counts of human trafficking. He was booked on, now this is better, Sumter County, $200,500 bond at the Sumter County Detention Center. And the odds are of him coming up with $20,000 for that bond is going to be like next to none. So his butt's going to sit in jail, and hopefully the court will come down hard on him and use him as an example. No. A woman who had been suspected of stealing a golf cart earlier this year from a town square in the Villages is behind bars after having her bond revoked. Katie Leon Bell, 33, of Oxford, was booked Thursday at the Sumter County Detention Center. She is facing a felony charge of drug trafficking stemming from a 2019 arrest. Bell had been arrested in September in connection with the theft of a 2015 Yamaha gas-powered golf cart, which had been parked at Spanish Spring Lanes on Alvarez Avenue. However, the prosecutor's office dropped the case because it was resolved without prosecution. A man convicted in the theft of silver certificates from a resident in the Villages is back in trouble again. Frank Boyne, 56, of Wildwood, was arrested Wednesday after a canine alerted on his black Dodge van after a traffic stop at County Road 243 and County Road 234A. According to the arrest report from Sumter County Sheriff's Office, the vehicle was pulled over for having an expired tag. Boyne admitted to deputies his Florida driver's license was no longer valid, another one driving around with no driver's license, and his North Carolina license was suspended due to unpaid traffic fines. A K-9 unit was summoned to the scene, and the dog alerted on the van a blue rubber pipe, which later field tested with positive results for marijuana, was found in the van. He was booked at the Sumter County Detention Center and released after posting a $5,500 bond. Boyne had been living in the village of Silver Lake in 2000 2015 when he stole silver certificates from a neighbor. That, I gotta tell you, that historic area up there, there's a big section of the Silver Lake area is the one I'm talking about basically. It's really going downhill bad. There's more decrepit things around there. Just drive through it, because I've read about this guy before. I think he should have been in jail a long time ago and just throw away the key, but somehow the lawyers always seem to negotiate for these people. Anyway, a villager who allegedly videoed his naked granddaughters is facing a new child molestation charge. No, what I just said, a new child molestation charge. He'd been charged before. Earl Vincent Knight Jr., 74, who lives on the historic side of the Villages once again, was arrested Thursday as a fugitive from justice in Rhode Island on a warrant charging him with child molestation, sexual assault. He was being held without bond this week at Lake County Jail. Good, Lake County. Knight had been free on a $26,000 bond following his arrest last year by Florida Department of Law Enforcement agents at his home at 548 South Andrews Boulevard. Florida Department of Law Enforcement extracted multiple charges of a 16-year-old girl and a 12-year-old girl who were apparently undressing in the home of the Knight and his wife, who had been married for more than 40 years. The girl's bare buttocks and breasts can be seen in the video. And it goes on and on and on. When they started questioning the wife, she started crying and saying she knew they had cameras all installed all through the home, but she had no idea that they were videoing children in the bathrooms and things. You know, she pleased dumb. Two people were arrested on warrants charging them with grand theft at a home in the village of Winifred. Brian Mark Krasuski, 46, was arrested at about 6 p.m. Thursday at his mother's house at 1905 Davidson Avenue. Arrested along with him was 52-year-old Laura Kathleen Gillette, who lives in the village of Santo Domingo. Krasuski and Gillette were both taken into custody and booked at Sumter County Detention Center. Both were released after posting a $2,000 bond each. Krasuski was arrested in March after visiting a known drug house in the village of La Zamora. He was found in possession of heroin, methamphetamine, and drug paraphernalia. His long history of arrests include the theft of a villager's wallet in 2015 at Colony Cottage swimming pool. I reported that. Gillette was arrested in August on a warrant charging her with driving under the influence after a Florida Department of Law Enforcement lab analyzed revealed drug usage months after an automobile accident. I'm going to post a few pictures on here about some bad parking. The snowbirds are coming back and the bad parking is really starting to set in again, really bad. And I'm going to put this on with that other picture that a subscriber of mine sent me. That's actually, he's a new villager. He just bought a home here, him and his wife. What can I say? Stupid is as stupid does. So I'll post some of these pictures, and at the end of it, you know, that'll be the end of this video. So with that being said, I'll see all of you guys on the other side. Well, that being said, enjoy the bad parking pictures that I'll put up here for you. You look at them and you try to figure out what's wrong. Some of them are obvious. Your keys in a golf cart.